Thank you, Commissioner. Let me just start. Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen, she mentioned earlier this week that she gave a speech in which she listed signs of weakness in the U.S. labor market that indicate conditions are worse than the unemployment rate suggests. And Chairwoman Yellen, among other things, she specifically mentioned the meager increases in the labor compensation, an average of a little more than 2% a year since the recession, and the large number of part-time workers, more than 7 million, as you referenced as well, who want full-time work, many more than one would expect when you have a 6.7% unemployment rate. Could you explain maybe why, and give some thoughts about why the unemployment rate does not convey the same extent of weakness as these other labor market indicators might show?
The employment situation contains, the release that we released today contains, I think it's over 1,000 numbers in them, all of which give you different perspectives on what's going on in the labor market. So no one particular number is going to be able to convey all facets of what is the largest market in the country. So it's really important for educated users like yourselves to look at many different measures, and as Janet Yellen has done as well. So, and some part of the answer to the question lies in not only what the numbers have been doing lately, but also how they are compared to what is normal for the economy, what are pre-recession levels. So that's all to preface, saying that we've had a lot of improvement lately since the decline, since the recession was over, but we haven't fully returned to pre-recession levels.
Yeah.
So, so for example, the number of people who are part-time for economic reasons, who would like a full-time job but who do not have one or have had their hours cut, has come down dramatically since the recession began, but it is still much higher than its pre-recession levels. And this is a measure of underutilization of labor in the economy, and those continue to be high. Even the unemployment rate, although it's come down a lot, is still much higher than its pre-recession levels.
Do you have some thoughts on why those indicators might be so weak, those other indicators might appear more weak?
Well, I guess we at the BLS are more about counting the way things are, measuring the current conditions, than on actually dividing this up. But we know that the labor market is large and complex, and so what happens when you have this big decline in aggregate demand is that this underutilization of labor goes into many different ways. It goes into people working fewer hours. It goes into more people unemployed. It spreads through all different parts of the labor market, and it takes a while for all of these different parts of the labor market to return.
And maybe you could explain too, is the linkage that exists between private investment and economic growth on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you've got labor demand, employment, and the labor force participation rate.
Well, we know we've had a lot of. There's been during the recession we had. The biggest hit in the recession immediately was a big increase in job destruction. Right? We had a huge number of layoffs of workers. At the same time, we had a slowing in the hiring. We've now returned to normal in our job destruction rates by most measures. What hasn't returned to normal have been the job creation rates, or job creation rates haven't been high enough to absorb all of the slack that's remained in the labor market.
Yeah. Would you say, is it fair to say that the slower economic growth we've had is the root cause of the labor market problems, and that the unemployment rate has been declining mostly because more and more people are disengaged from the labor market?
Let's see, so going to the labor force participation, the estimates are that about half of the decline in the labor force participation rate is due to demographic factors. And so that wouldn't be associated with the slowdown. About half of the remaining part, and this is work being done largely in the Federal Reserve rather than at the BLS, estimates there are about half of the remaining part is due to changing behavior of various demographic groups. For example, young people enrolling in college more and staying in high school longer, and women no longer increasing their labor force participation rates. The remaining quarter seems to be associated with the downturn in the economy, with the assumption that when the economy, as the economy improves, that part will generally go away. And so we will see at least a slower decline in labor force participation. So it's not that much of decline in participation by these estimates is due to the slower economy.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, Vice